I'll go ahead and get things started. So, hello everyone. Thank you for being here. I'm Kevin Smith, Assistant Dean of Admissions and Financial Aid. And I'd like to start off things by saying congratulations to all of you on your admission to GSAP. This was an incredibly competitive year, and your acceptance is really just a testament to your talent, vision, and potential to shape the future of the built environment. You're going to find yourself among some like-minded peers and esteemed faculty. And I'm excited for you all to have the opportunity today to discuss more about the Historic Preservation Program. So I'm joined by my colleague, Director of the Historic Preservation Program, Professor Jorge Otero Palos, who I will turn things over to now.
Thank you, Kevin. Welcome, everyone, and congratulations to all of you again. I would suggest that you all turn on your cameras at some point today because we're going to start with introductions. So if you could do that and get yourself ready for that, that would be great. If you're here, it's because you probably felt at some point in your life, you went up to a building and you kind of put your hand on it and you felt a deep connection to that historic place. And maybe you felt through that connection, a connection to people and to a culture and to a place and to a different time. And so that is very important because the materiality of things transports us, gets us to move across space and time in really amazing ways. And those ways can move us and can move the world, and they can change the world. So part of what we're going to be doing in the program here is to help you be more intentional about how you want to change the world through historic buildings, how you think of the future. And so you guys are the cohort. We had our in-person meeting with some of your colleagues that are in your cohort as well for the fall. But you guys are, I understand a lot of people are far from the city or you couldn't make it for whatever reason. So we're happy that you're online. So I just want to start by saying a little bit about myself. Sarah Grace can introduce herself as well. And then we're going to ask you to tell us your name. I mean, I've met some of you already, but I want you to meet each other because you're going to be studying together. So you should, get to know each other. And just say your name, what your background is. You'll see everybody has a very different background. Everybody has from different disciplinary backgrounds, but everybody has a passion for preservation. So yeah, just want to have you talk a little bit about that. So a little bit about myself. I'm a preservation architect and also an artist, trained as a historian as well, an urban designer. I think I did every degree that an architecture school can offer before I settled on historic preservation. I practice in buildings, historic buildings, both in the United States, but also internationally. I work with them traditionally, in the preservation field. But also I'm very interested in those things that we cannot preserve through traditional means. So whether it's through the legal structure or through the technologies that are available. And so I work in the realm of experimental preservation to find ways to preserve those things that I think are important and to find new technologies or new methodologies. And that's where art comes in. So I work within that realm and I exhibit artworks both in the public realm as public art and elsewhere. So I've written books, textbooks, different books, articles, and so on. I also edit the journal Future Anterior along with your colleagues here, students in the program, and very involved in architectural preservation discourse. So that's enough about me. I'll let Sarah Grace, with some of you have spoken to or emailed with, introduce herself as well.
Hello, good morning to all of y'all. I am Sarah Grace. I'm the assistant director here working with Jorge. I've been here since end of 2021. I am a preservation architect who worked in the Southeast for a while before moving up to New York City. So I have experience in both of those areas. And I'm here If you have any questions about the program, feel free to reach out to me and I'll get back to you as soon as I can, whether by jumping on a call or an email.
Okay, so why don't we start with Adan? Is that?
Yeah. Hi, my name's Aiden Youngblood. I currently work in Dallas, Texas at an architecture firm, and I got my Bachelor of Architecture from Auburn about 3 years ago.
Excellent. Yorgos.
So nice to see you again. My name is Yorgos. I come from Crete, which is an island of Greece. I've been practicing architecture here for 4 years so far. And I'm interested in historic preservation and how we can preserve the historic continuity in architecture, but in a way that we want to conserve without becoming conservative. So this is my mission, I suppose.
Fabulous. Thank you, Yorgos. Okay, Abby.
Hello, my name is Abby Anderson. I got my bachelor's in architecture from Clemson in South Carolina, and that's also where I'm from. So also familiar with the Southeast. There I was really interested in design build and anthropology. So it kind of married the two into being a lot more interested in historic preservation. And I currently work for a firm in Charlotte, North Carolina.
Amazing. Benjamin. Oh, Ben, we can't hear you. We got audio issues.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, excellent. Sorry about that. Hi, everybody. I'm Ben Gehring. I grew up in the Midwest. I'm now in my senior year at the University of Virginia, studying architectural history and archaeology. I'm interested in the intersection of those two fields, how to make the heritage discourse more publicly accessible, and then the intersection between heritage sites and health.
Fantastic. Okay, Gabby.
Hi, sorry, let me getting the camera on. I'm not in New York right now, so it's 6 a.m. for me. I'm in LA time.
Oh, sorry. Well, if you haven't combed your hair yet, you don't have to turn
Oh,
on.
here we go. Okay. Hi,
Okay.
everyone. Nice to meet you. I'm Gabby. I have been working for probably 15 years. So I graduated college a long time ago. I have a background. I have my own art practice in painting. And I have a background in nonprofit program management. Now I work at a foundation that does fund some historic preservation. Kind of over this very long period of time, I've realized I want to do something that feels kind of more inspiring, actually about the materials. And if I could have an impact working with the built environment, with people, with kind of equity issues, history. I mean, I studied history in undergrad. The possibility of working internationally is also really interesting to me. And someone else had said, yeah, kind of having an impact, shaping historical narrative and what that means now. So, yeah, that's me.
Gabby, thank you so much. Danielle.
Hi everyone. My name is Danielle. I'm currently at my lab because my background's in neuroscience, and I'm very interested in cultural preservation and heritage, and how through materiality we can also explore that. So maybe similar to Gabby. Nice to meet everyone.
Excellent. Thank you. Flowen. Flowen, are you able to say hello? Going doesn't seem to be able to turn. Well, if you're able to do it later, just turn it on. Okay, Jessica, how about you? Can you turn on say hello?
Hello, everyone. Sorry, I'm on my way to work, so I'll be listening from my commute. But hi, excited to meet all of you. My background is in media. I was the VP of Commerce at both BuzzFeed and Rolling Stone. I've always worked in some form of news. In exploring opportunities to purchase property for myself, I ironically came across through a lot of digging and nosiness, a plantation that was for sale in the South. And I realized, well, I think I first realized I had family members who had lived and worked there. And saw
I think we lost Jessica.
the management and existence of the space. I realized I had no expertise or understanding of real estate, development, management, historic preservation, and also needed to do a lot more work in terms of figuring out how I could bring an idea like that to life. I grew up in the South. Lots of my friends have gotten married on plantations, which people have their own feelings about that. But I had this idea to find a way to preserve these spaces and their cultural and historical significance in a way that gives back to the people who might have been harmed previously, working on them and existing on them. So that is what brought me to apply to Columbia. And I look forward to discussing these ideas with everyone else on the call at some point.
Okay, very good. Well, thank you. Where are you, Jessica?
I'm in Brooklyn. I'm on my way to work from a coffee shop, actually. So I'll be putting you in my cup holder and listening in a little bit, but yeah, I'm Brooklyn, based in Williamsburg, Bed-Stuy, usually.
Right. Let me ask you all a question. How many of you saw the open house in the fall? How many of you attended the online info session in the fall? Not okay. All right. So Yorgos was there. Okay, great. Well, let me share screen here for a second and just give you a little bit of an overview of what to expect next year. Okay, so you know, it's going to happen before you think. September's around the corner. So thinking about what is it going to be like to be at Columbia? Yorgos mentioned this idea of how to preserve things without being conservative. And we think about experimental preservation as a broad framework to bring together technology and the humanities to really rethink how we take care of existing things. As an example, I give you this historic boat on the Hudson River. It's a fireboat. It served on a ton of emergencies, fires, both on boats and on shore. I was there in 9/11, and it's a metal boat, and it was rusting, and it needed a new coat of paint, a very particular kind of marine grade paint that needed to be applied to it. They applied for a grant to have the boat repainted, but they decided to collaborate with an artist to rethink the pattern of the color of that red and white pattern, which is that red and white is the pattern that we recognize as a fireboat, as a emergency response boat. And one of our alumni who runs this nonprofit that runs the boat decided to follow this framework of experimental preservation and work with an artist. And the artist actually started to rethink that pattern and to blended into the patterns of the waves and the streak that the boat leaves in the water, and to kind of bring the waterness of the Hudson River up onto the boat. And so you can see a completely new pattern on the boat to really bring it to life in a different way, both to preserve it, do the material technical preservation, but also to engage new audiences, to bring people to a point where they take a second look. And experimental preservation is always two things at once. You're actually doing the preservation, physically helping to preserve something, but you're also doing an act of cultural communication, a form of expression. And of course, you have to gauge how much you change the object. Here, what has changed is just the very physical surface. And of course, you know, we talk about things like reversibility. This is clearly a reversible application. You can repaint the boat. In fact, you have to repaint the boat every so many years. So that's a frame for you to think about in terms of what we do. And the faculty here does this in different ways. We talked about what I do as a preservation architect and an artist. I work on this kind of thing where, you know, I work physically on the buildings and I will use the material residues of monuments like dust, or even big sections of buildings like I just did a project where I saved the fence around the US Embassy in Oslo, and I turned those into sculptures that were on Park Avenue recently, and that's a traveling exhibition to raise awareness about the need to preserve these buildings. Erica Avrami is a policy expert. She thinks more on the structural side, the kind of government side, the laws, the regulations that impact how we do preservation. Preservation is written into the law of most countries, and through different ways in different countries, it activates the economy and the political sphere to not only preserve those buildings, but to use those buildings to advance different causes, whether it is the cause of identity, like the national, you know, identity of a country, or social equity, or climate change. It sets different outcomes. And so Erica experiments by looking at the intended outcomes. Why did we set this law in place? And are we doing what we said we were going to do? And then she challenges those. So you're going to be learning an incredible amount about how the regulatory environment shapes what we can do on a case-by-case basis. But she's also an expert internationally. Our program, is very important for you to know, of course, uses New York as a laboratory, but it is a very international program. People come here from all over the world to study preservation, and some of them stay here, some of them go back to their countries or different regions of the United States to practice preservation. So that is a very important aspect of our program. You're going to meet people from different places, different religions, different identities, different genders, you name it. It's going to be a place where you're going to discover, you know, that actually you have a lot in common. You have a lot in common, and that commonality is your passion for preservation. And that kind of puts everything else on a second level. But Erica has a lot of experience internationally, and you're going to, you know, she worked for she led the research and education department for the World Monuments Fund for over 15 years before she came to Columbia. And so we have a longstanding agreement with the World Monuments Fund where we send you to work in different places around the world with them. Andrew Dolkart is a historian. He is an expert on New York City and in America, but he really is the person that knows the most about every building in New York. I mean, he is really, you can ask him about any single building and he will tell you a whole story about it. But he's particularly interested in the buildings that are kind of like secondary buildings, the buildings that are almost like typological or vernacular, the buildings that make up the fabric of the city, you know, not the exceptional kind of big skyscraper or what have you, but more like the row houses that make up the body of New York. And we also have a large group of faculty that are adjuncts that are specialized in different areas that work professionally in New York. New York is the largest preservation marketplace, job market in the United States. And they all have offices and practices, and they come to teach in the program. So we're a very professional program. We train you and get you ready to have a job by the time you get out in 2 years. So there's a lot of ramp up that you do. I won't go through each of these people, but I would say that, you know, if you look around this faculty, you have preservation architects, you have preservation engineers that are both in structural engineering, you have preservation planners, You have architectural conservators dealing with materials. You have policy people. You have people that are working for government. You have computer scientists. We have a class that's been running before artificial intelligence became trendy. You know, we have an artificial intelligence class for preservationists. So some of them are computer scientists. So it's a really quite a broad spectrum of classes. Some of them are experts on 3D scanning and 3D printing, and you know, you students will do projects with them where you know you learn to 3D scan buildings and then print out different different elements of those buildings so that you can do assessments of the conditions of those buildings. So it's quite a remarkable faculty, and we're supported by amazing staff. You met already Sarah Grace. Mika Tao leads as a lab manager, the Preservation Technology Laboratory, and Lee Smith is our program assistant. So when you come here, you have many options. As you know, you've already applied to one of these, so it's a little bit redundant for you. But of course, there's a 2-year program. You can do the program part-time if you're working in New York City, and take 4 years to do it. And you can do different dual degrees through which you can save some time if you do both degrees while you're here. Now, as you enter the preservation program in the fall, you can apply to some of these other programs to do these dual degrees the following year. So, you know, even if you applied only to our program, when you get here, you can also apply to some of these other programs. What is unique about the curriculum of our program is how complete it is. And we believe in this slab curriculum. We call it the slab curriculum, and we love the symbolism of a slab foundation. You know, you have to really stand on that. That's the ground floor. You got to build a good foundation to build a good building. And so the slab also stands for the different facets of what you're going to learn. You're going to learn about the social role in preservation, how to engage with society. That deals, of course, with politics as well, but regulation, laboratory, materials, science, engineering, that's all part of the program. Materiality, archives, historical research, memory, these kinds of engagements with the archival world. And the built environment, the building, and the building as a designed reality. You know, everything, you look around and everything is designed. So you're going to be engaged in changing those designs. We're a studio-based program. So you can see the studio is a really big part. It ties it all together. You're going to take a studio both semesters of your first year. And I'll talk a little bit more about those. The second, in those 2 studios are linked to the classes that you see here in blue and red. Those are your required classes. And your first semester, you take all required classes. And we'll talk about that as well in a second. Your second year, you have a Studio 3 option and you have your thesis. Every single one of you will do their own research, their own independent research. And your research will draw upon each of these different facets of preservation. We help you to make that research amazing. And I'm very proud to say that the theses that our students do here at Columbia are really scholarship that is referenced in the field by professionals. And we take a lot of care in the quality of those theses. They are your masterpiece, right? They're your capstone project. So you'll get a lot of support on that. Now, why do we think you need a foundation? Other programs you will see specialize you right away in a very narrow sliver of what preservation does. Fine, that'll get you a job maybe when you get out. But we track this and we notice that people that specialize too much in their master's program don't hold their job very long. They get a job because a company needs their skills on that particular year. And when that job is over, they need you to do something else. And if you have no other skills, you get fired. So we noticed that students were getting fired 2-3 years after they got that first job. So we want you to have very long and productive careers. And that means that this is a unique moment for you to actually get those skills. It's a luxury. It's a privilege to have 2 years to study a master's at Columbia University. And I want you all to take advantage of that privilege and to dream big, to think about how you can change the world. There are very few moments in life when you are allowed to dream big and when you have that opportunity. Childhood, you're all kids, right? You at one point, and some of you as children were like, I'm gonna be president, I'm gonna be an astronaut, I'm gonna do this, right? Whatever it was that you dreamt big. And slowly but surely, the world hits us in different ways and we kind of adapt but you found that you gotten to a certain point now in life where you need to rethink what you're doing. Preservation is for people that are quite mature already. And this is the moment for you to dream big and to think about how you can take your career to the next level and expand your horizons. And that means you need to put yourself in a position where you are open to new things. And that means taking classes that you didn't think that could be interesting for you. But actually, you realize that you discovered a new thing, a new passion in those classes. So we're really believers in that. You might not think all these classes are for you, but believe me, so many people have gone through these classes and completely opened up a whole new aspect that they discovered. So your first year is all required classes. This is what your fall semester is going to look like. You have Mondays free. No, they're not free. Monday, you're going to actually be doing a lot of field work. You're going to be going out to buildings. You're going to be doing research. You're going to be writing your papers. You're going to be needing that Monday to do work. Also Thursday afternoon and Friday afternoon. Other than that, you're going to be in your required classes in your required studio. Now, Studio One is an amazing studio. You learn a lot in the studio, okay? It is a big ramp up of a studio. And it's also a place where you're all getting to know each other because you're going to be working in many ways in teams. This, I can describe this, this studio, the skills that you're going to acquire and the speed at which you acquire and the ramp up, it's like drinking out of a fire hose. Okay, it is actually really difficult. You're gonna not be able to drink everything, but you're gonna get a lot. And here, for example, the focus of Studio One is they're gonna give you a building and you're not gonna know anything about this building and you're gonna have to do the research, but we're gonna teach you the research methods. And you're gonna find out, for example, how to use archives. We're gonna go to Avery Library. You're going to go out into the field. One of the buildings, you get a small building and then a large building at the end of the semester, is we go out to Woodlawn Cemetery where you have all these incredible mausoleums and each of you gets one mausoleum to work on. And that mausoleum has all the drawings and all the archival documentation. They're designed by some of the greatest architects in America in the 19th century. And it's all here in Avery Library. So you get to see the drawings of the original architects and you get to do it yourself. And we go out there and teach you different field documentation methods, how to draw, how to document the conditions of a building. And each of you are going to produce a set of drawings that are going to document those conditions. Now, some of you are architects and know how to do this kind of thing. And some of them are not architects. And at this moment, how many of you are not architects and have never done a drawing like this? Okay, great. So Danielle and Ben and many others, you're probably having a little panic right now, right? Thinking, oh my God, how am I gonna do this? That's okay. You're not going to have to do this level. But we're going to teach everyone to draw. And the reason for that is not, some of you will never draw this again in, this way in your life. but we're also going to teach all of you to write, to do research. Now, why draw? Drawing is an act of observation. Drawing is a way of looking. So what we're really going to be teaching you to do is not so much to draw, but to look. And when you're trying to draw something up, you're really paying attention to. And that's the skill, because as a preservationist, you're going to go to a building and you're going to observe things. And drawing is going to give you that capacity to observe different things about it, how this building is made up, what were the tools used to construct it, what are the materials that were used, what were the different styles that tell us maybe who was the artist or the architect that designed it, or the period in which it was built. So a lot of things that you can pick up just with your eyes, and that you're going to learn in Studio One. And then you're going to get a bigger building in New York City. They're usually grouped by some kind of theme. And you're going to do the same thing. You're going to try to figure out whether this building is worthy of preservation. Does this building rise up to be important enough to be preserved? And that's your professional call. You're going to be asked in your professional opinion this question many, many times. The building doesn't look very nice. Is it important? Should we save it? And that means you're going to have to go over there and do the research. Maybe somebody really important lived in this building that you need to recognize. Maybe it was designed by a great architect in a style that we don't love anymore. It was fancy at the time. Everybody loved maybe a brutalist building, but now nobody loves brutalism. So everybody wants to tear it down, and you have to fight for that building. You have to be the spokesperson for the building. And you also have to be the spokesperson for the communities that depend and live from those buildings and draw meaning from those buildings in their lives. And that's Studio Two. Studio Two, you're going to learn to work with communities. You're going to go out into the community. You're going to learn methods for doing community engaged research, for asking other people their opinions about the world and about the physical world around them, because communities know better than you. You might think a building is important, but they'll tell you, did you look around the corner? There's a little shed over there, and that's a really important place because that's the community center. And that's really the history of this place was written in that place. So you learn to listen, you learn humility, and you learn that you don't always have all the answers, but you also learn to speak for other people. You're always speaking for other people. You're representing other people. You are representing you're speaking for the building, you're speaking for other people, you are an advocate. Advocacy is very important. So this is a skill. Many of you are trained in other disciplines that are going to help you become a certain kind of advocate. Maybe you come from a communications background or a neuroscience background where you understand how the brain works and are able to tap into, different aspects of our biological engagements. And so you're going to be able to contribute to this in a different way. Now, Studio Two also deals with, depending on the year, it's always there, but with the climate emergency. The fact that our politicians are de-emphasizing the climate emergency doesn't mean that it goes away. And so we need to actively engage with this question of embodied carbon. And 40% of all the carbon that is released into the atmosphere every year comes from heating and cooling existing buildings. So we need to understand how to adapt those existing buildings, because we don't have the energy to just tear them all down and build new ones. In fact, if we did that, we would use a lot more carbon than if we retrofit the existing buildings to be climate, let's say, climate ready. So you're going to be learning a lot of science and technology in class, but you're also going to be learning a lot of the history of where these materials come from and the flows and traffic of materials, because a material can come from very far away places. And those places have people in them as well. So there are histories to be told through the materiality of the building that are social histories and political histories. You know, if an oak or a rare wood comes from an Amazon forest and has been, you know, taken out of that forest in the 19th century under dubious circumstances, that's a story that you can tell. And you should tell. If it comes from Indiana limestone or the brick is from a certain pit, you know that history, and it ties the building to a larger story. Now, some of you might or might not decide to take in your second year an option studio, an advanced studio. And this is a studio that is taught together with architecture. I co-teach this. It's a travel studio. So you learn to go to another place. Usually it's another country, but it can be another place in the United States, to deal with a different kind of cultural way of preserving. So we've been going to Venice for a few years. Next year, we're going to go to Ireland, and we will go to other places maybe when it's your turn to take the studio. If you're an architect, you can take the studio for 9 credits, which meets twice a week, and it's basically a full adaptive reuse problem. And if you're not, you can take the studio for 6 credits, and it is an experimental preservation studio, where you do what I showed you with the boat. You do a proposal for how to physically preserve the building, but also bring in a public dimension of it. So it's very experimental. You can use whatever technology you're interested in, from the biological, the microbial, to the environmental. But it has to do 2 things at once. It has to both save the building and also engage the public. And here's some images of some of the, these are some designs that were done by some of the students in here, where the building on the right is the house of John Jay, one of the founding fathers of the United States, and also a graduate of, at the time it was called King's College, now it's called Columbia University. And here is on the left a new visitor center for this historic home. Now, the thesis will take many forms. Some of you will do more of a history thesis. Some of you will do more of a planning and policy thesis. Some of you will do more of a, artificial intelligence or, neuroscientific thesis. Some of you will do some more of an architectural conservation, building conservation. Here you have somebody dealing with a vapor transmission in stone. And there you have on the right somebody working on projection mapping, how to restore a building with projection so that you can see the building decayed and projected as well. Every thesis that is done in the program has a physical dimension in some way. So you have to do something that has an impact in the world and think about that impact in the world. And that goes to, in my view, if you're going to write a paper, you're going to think about the paper and the ink that goes on it. If that's your materiality, that's your materiality. But you have to think about the materiality. And the place that you're going to be learning to think about materiality is the Preservation Technology Laboratory, which was recently remodeled. And it is a place that has an amazing teaching library of historic building materials and fragments, where you learn to identify materials, you learn to treat those materials, you learn to conserve those materials, you learn to also add new ideas to those materials. So here you have Professor Norman Weiss, who actually founded the laboratory in the late 1970s and trained every single architectural conservator that has then gone on to teach in other programs in America. He is really the world's expert, especially on stone, brick, terracotta, a lot of masonry materials. So you'll be working on them. And in your first semester, you will be given a fragment of in the collection. Actually, you won't be given the fragment. You will have to pick it. You will go into the lab and you'll be like, I want to work on this fragment. And we will tell you absolutely nothing about the fragment. And you have to start doing the research. We'll teach you the methodology, how to document it. You'll start doing a drawing of the fragment, how to do the archival research, how to think about the social dimension, and then how to complete the fragment. And this was a very interesting story because the fragment that Abby got was only this big. It was this triangular piece over here. And she did the research, this piece over here, you see it over here? And she did the research on the very, you could barely read what it said on it, right? It said Mund, etc., you know, and some date, 1740, and I'm not quite sure what the other number is over here. So she started looking at the stone. What kind of stone is it? Where does the stone come from in the United States? Where could it have been quarried? It was a northeastern stone. You know, where are all the cemeteries in the Northeast around where the stone is? She then went onto these databases and found all the names that ended in Mund and started to look at where they could have been buried. And she identified the grave and the cemetery in Boston. And she called them. And it turns out they had the other piece that was missing. We had no idea where this thing came from. And she found it. She was able to connect with them. She did a whole ceremony. She brought the fragment up to Boston, and they did the ceremony where they put the two pieces together. And so here you have the two pieces over here. This piece was added by her to try to, you know, complete the fragment. As a result, we lost our fragment from the lab because the cemetery wanted to keep it, so they kept it. But this is the kind of story, you know, that you find out. And here's another fragment of a building in St. Louis, where this student began by drawing the extension, drawing the completion. This is clay that she used. You all get to use clay to start to complete that fragment. And here's another student where here is the fragment. If you can see this area over here, can you all see my cursor? So this area over here is the fragment. And this area is what she completed. And at first she thought this was going to be a square tile. This is a 16th century Spanish style from the south of Spain. But doing all the research, and she connected with the Metropolitan Museum, which has a collection of Spanish styles. And this is the amazing thing about New York. We have these incredible riches in the Metropolitan Museum, the Museum of Modern Art, the Whitney Museum, the Hispanic Society, the Asia Society, you know, you name it. And they each have collections, and we teach you to engage with those collections. And so she found out actually that the tiles that they had are actually a lot larger. So you see how big it is. And they have an area on the borders that are actually not painted. And that is because these are not wall tiles, they are ceiling tiles, and they sit between two beams. And so the beam, these tiles rest on the beams, and where they rest on the beams, there is no color. So she found out a whole idea about what makes, you know, this, how to complete this tile. And these are philosophical questions when you do this kind of work. You have to think about what it means to complete something. Do you complete it in the same style as it was before? Do you change the style? Do you make it more contemporary? Do you put your name on it? Do you add a date to it? These are all philosophical questions that translate to larger realities when you work on an entire building. Because when you work on a missing building in a historic district, you're also having to deal with questions of, should it be aesthetically the same? Should it be related differently? Should we put a date on it, etc.? So you learn a tremendous amount of skills. You also are in classes that we're going to take you to see how buildings are made, the production of buildings, where they are restored. This is a hot dip galvanizing plant that the metals class goes to, where there is this incredible bath of zinc where they dip the metals to protect them from corrosion. A lot of marine grade metals are treated in this way. So you're going to learn different treatments. You're going to learn to see the factories where the work is done. You're going to learn to 3D scan, to 3D print, to use artificial intelligence, to think about, to assess buildings. You're going to also do these group exercises where we participate on a national level on the design of traditional systems. So here there is, we are very close to the Association for Preservation Technology. It's actually it's an international organization. A lot of Columbia grads are part of it. And you are going to be in a team to enter in this competition that designs a bridge. Sometimes it designs an arch, sometimes it designs various things. And there's different parts to the design. There's a research component, there is a technical component, and it's a great fun. And we travel to these conferences to participate in these competitions. And there are also, this is quite unique to Columbia. Columbia during the summer pays you to study. So that we have summer workshops, and in these summer workshops, Columbia pays you for 2 weeks to take a summer workshop. Some of these travel. This is one that we did on 3D scanning of buildings to figure out the dust deposition on the buildings and how those dust depositions tell us a story about the environment around the building, so that we can think of the building as an environmental sensor that tells us the story of climate. We've also taken students, and we will do this again this summer, to learn how to forge metal and how to cast metal. And we go to Alabama to a historic foundry where they used to do cast iron, and we actually cast iron and we cast bronze, and all of you get to dress up in leather and to, work the crucible and create your own little sculptural pieces. These are some of the pieces. This is one of the pieces that, we did. Somebody was, we worked on an iron grill, the restoration of an iron grill. So this is bronze. So you'll have these incredible opportunities. And these are opportunities also to meet with a lot of the different students of GSAPP, because you will mix. It's not just preservation students, it's students from every program. There's lectures that we expect you to go to practically every week, where we bring in experts from around the world just to be with you. We have one coming from Turkey on April 17th, which we invite you to be on Zoom for. So please join us for that. And we have international conferences where we bring experts from around the world. Once a year, we have a major conference. We've done it on repairing architecture schools. We will be doing one on provenance in the fall, and we've done different topics like war and preservation or various things. So it's a very active environment of discussion, of challenging ideas, of opening horizons that you will get as much out of as you put in. If you only go to class and go home, you'll get, the baseline. But if you spend the time to go to these lectures, to join with students, go to have coffee with your cohort, the people on this call and others, you will learn and you will get a lot more from the program. The faculty is involved in research. You can be part of that research as a research assistant. So you just tell us if you want to be a research assistant, and we'll find a place for you to be part of that. Andrew has a New York LGBT Historic Sites project, which is amazing. Erica's been working on sustainability and adapting the existing built environment. And I as well, have a number of research projects. All of this is preparing you for a job. So we work very closely with you from day one to get a job. And we are very much invested in you working, if you want to, at Columbia. There's jobs at Columbia. And there's a job board that you can do work at Columbia. Some of you want to do that, some of them no. But also we match you with an alum. We have the largest alumni network in the country. I'd say the most powerful alumni network in the country. It's also internationally very, very engaged. And that alum will help you navigate the professional world. You have to network. You have to meet people. That's how you get a job when you graduate. If you don't start networking from the beginning, when you get out, you're not going to know anybody to send your CV to. So we have a fantastic career fair where we bring in professionals, and they interview you, they talk to you about their firms, and then, you know, hopefully we open the door for you, but you have to walk through the door and get the job. So alumni work in many, many, many different places. In private practice, many of you will run your own businesses, and we have a class on the business of preservation. How do you make money as a preservationist? You know, you have to know how to run your business. Some of you will work for other people in private practice, whether in architecture, engineering, or in a historic preservation consulting firm. Some of you will work for government, in a municipality, a preservation office at the state level, at the national level, or the equivalent in another country. And some of you will work in the nonprofit world. And there are many different kinds of nonprofits. So this is about the teaching assistantships. There's lots of different teaching assistantships. Let me know if that's something that interests you. We also have what we call casual positions, which are paid by the hour, essentially. And they involve like working here in the office or in other places. There's opportunities to be in the program, like program council, where you serve as a student representative. We also have the magazine, the journal Future Anterior, which is the premier scholarly journal in historic preservation theory and criticism. And you can be a student editor, which is a paid position for that as well. Yeah, so this was, something that for last, when we did our in-person open house, not for you to worry about. Very good. Well, it was so nice to see you all, and so glad you could make the online open house. We're very thrilled and excited to have you at Columbia. We're really looking forward to having you here. We'll be in touch throughout the summer. There's, lots of communications that'll start happening. So yeah, we look forward and, to seeing you soon around here, hopefully. All right. Thanks again, everyone.